because the meme coin communities, they are producing better memes than the memes that are produced by the tech altcoin community.
They probably made like $10 billion, $12 billion, and none of it has gone to the token holders.
That it's in these projects' best interest not to pay revenue.
And myself and the broader community is curious, like, how do you think about exiting? What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Roll Up. Today, we have a special episode following the Trump win and red wave in the USA elections with Arthur Hayes, who is the co-founder at 100X Group and chief investment officer of Maelstrom. Also, probably you guys know him from the BitMEX days. Used to work at Citigroup in Deutsche Bank, certified DGen, but also has a lot of great macro takes. Pretty good combination here with Murad, the Memecoins super cycler, currently with a social trading platform, STFX, which we've heard of before and has been around for some time, and used to also be a chief investment officer at Adaptive Capital. So guys, looking forward to this one and kind of get a combination of different perspectives on the election, on the broader macro takes, meme coins, and everything in between. So thanks, guys, and welcome on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Epic. Well, guys, let's jump right in. I mean, 2 days ago now, we had the Trump win. We had an insane kind of pump across all of the markets. And just really like this sentiment has shifted towards broader macro bullishness, business bullishness, innovation, and obviously crypto. And so just like broadly, I'm curious, how are you guys feeling today from the results of the last 48 hours? And what are your reflections on the implications of Trump winning, as well as a huge crypto win in the House and Senate from the US? Even more specifically, like aside from DeFi, what other sectors do you guys think might kind of benefit the most from Trump and regulatory clarity? Arthur, if you want to take a stab at it and we can go around.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trump winning all three legislative branches means that he gets to pursue his policy of printing money without any obstacles. Not that I thought it actually mattered who won the election anyways, but I was surprised that, he kicked their ass as well as he did. And so the question really is, how quickly is he going to print the money? He's been very vocal that he wants to weaken the dollar and he wants to bring back businesses to America. That can only happen with printed money and bank credit. And so I think crypto recognizes this, gold will recognize it shortly, and then industrial type stocks are going to rip as it becomes very clear about what his legislative priorities are. I think the crypto specific stuff, I'm a bit more sanguine on what that actually means. It's one thing to say you're going to have coherent crypto regulation. It's another thing to actually have a bill get through all these different chambers. Obviously, there's a lot of crypto vested interests who'd rather have just a bunch of regulations that nobody can follow except them, and versus crypto bros who thought that Trump meant freedom for them to hold their coins and do DeFi and all that. So I think there's a wide spectrum of what regulation means, whether you're like Coinbase or BlackRock, or you're just random DGen who's on Phantom Wallet and MetaMask, and what that actually means, and we're going to see what the regulation that comes out of it.
On my side, I would say I am bullish crypto in the medium to long term, regardless who would have won the presidency. My overarching thesis aligns with Arthur's in the sense that I think people over-index specific news, even specific election cycles, and I think that there are long-term secular structural forces at play in the world that are pushing crypto higher, that are occurring irrespective of whether Democrats or Republicans are in power in America. And obviously, there's many things at play, but I would agree with Arthur that money printing is ultimately the biggest beneficiary to crypto asset prices. Now, Arthur kind of gave his view on macro. On the micro level, I would say after Trump's victory, you now have a lot of people on Twitter opining that his presidency is going to be bullish DeFi, it's going to be bullish kind of like on-chain equities, on-chain projects that kind of return revenue to the stakeholders. But my view for a long time has been that, the vast majority of altcoins don't really produce any revenues. And the 1% of them that do frankly, in my opinion, a lot of people have been arguing that Trump victory is going to kind of bring about this DeFi renaissance, this on-chain revenue renaissance or whatever. But I remain skeptical because, you know, if you look at a lot of DeFi protocols, and even if you look at the ones that are legit and are producing a decent amount of revenue, um, it's not in their interest to distribute revenues to stakeholders. Why? Because if you essentially turn it into an on-chain stock, then TradFi people who've been doing discounted cash flow valuations for their whole career, they're going to come in and see that these things are effectively massively overvalued on that basis, right? Which means that up until now, for the past decade, these DeFi tokens, 70 to 80% of their valuation was mimetic in nature already, you know, based on narrative, based on community, based on Ponzinomics, based on speculation, etc., right? And I think, you know, a lot of people have been saying up until today that it's been regulations why we don't really have cash flow distributions on chain. But, you know, in my opinion, it's not in the interests of teams to do so. It's not in the interest of VCs to do so, etc., etc. Now, longer term, my belief is that this space is actually purifying this cycle. Meme coins are acting as a purification mechanism. They're acting as a sort of a checks and balances system to a lot of the altcoin grift that has been going on. And I think in the future, slowly over a couple of cycles, you're going to see this separation in the industry into cash flow coins and meme coins, right? And I think gradually, cash flow coins are going to be more serious, more legitimate, more revenue oriented for the suits, etc. And then meme coins, they're gradually going to absorb more of the community premium, DGM premium, speculative premium, etc. And I think this cycle is where that shift is like slowly unfolding.
I'd say that just on the revenue side of things, I think that projects actually do get punished for not paying out revenues. If you take a look at say Uniswap, right, the most successful DeFi app in all of crypto, makes what, a few $billion in fees every year, right? I was taking a look at the chart today. It traded up to what, a 40 billion FDV at its high, right? And now it's down at like, I don't know, 10, 8, whatever it is. And the revenues have kept pace, right? They've probably even grown from 2021 until today, but they continue to be obstinate about not paying out any of that revenue to the token holders. And the token has gotten punished, as it should, because, you know, if they're making, you know, they probably made like $10 billion, $12 billion, and none of that has gone to the token holders. So I think you get one chance. You get the one pump where it's mimetic in nature and it's all that. And then it's like, okay, well, you're successful, you survived, and yet I'm not getting paid as a token holder. Well, fuck you. I don't want to own this token. And then you're Uniswap and you're DYDX and you're all these successful projects where the token is trash because they waited too long to start paying out revenue. So I think there is punishment for not paying out revenue. And, you know, if for whatever reason the regulations change in particular jurisdictions and allow these projects to pay out revenue, I think that's great. But yeah, you do get punished over time. It might not be the first cycle, though.
Yeah, and we've seen almost all of these applications, in addition to the Ethereum itself, kind of go through this identity crisis where, you know, there's almost a divide, the ultrasound money crew in Ethereum versus like the DeFi revenue producing people. And so there's this concept of monetary premium that I think Murad is pointing to with these meme coins. And if there's a successful monetary premium or mimetic premium that can be derived, it's almost the value that these meme coins have is almost amorphous, and you can't really put your finger on it. You can't really deduce what the value should be from a discounted cash flow model. And so you have this wild speculative surge that can take place. And so would you guys suggest that it's in these projects' best interest not to pay revenue and to actually just focus on building community and trying to build the most speculative mimetic value possible?
Oh, no, I think take a look at Uniswap, right? It's a 5 billion market cap coin. It probably generates, I call it $2 billion a year in fees. It's a 40% return. What other asset in the world pays you 40% dividend rate? That's an amazing asset. I want to own that asset, right? And I want to own it from 40% all the way down to 5%. So they're fucking themselves. The token should be ripping because they're making so much money and they're paying out dividends, right? So I don't think it's a good thing. The mimetic thing is like, you use the memes to get you to a point where you have users who then will pay you money for a service. I think that's the goal, unless you're purely just a meme coin, which will never have any sort of revenue. But the mimetic is just a bridge to revenue. And if you never pay the revenue, then the meme dies, right? Because no meme lasts forever, and then you're left with nothing.
Yeah, so I agree with Arthur in the context of Uniswap, but I would also point out that for every Uniswap, which is kind of like the holy grail example of revenue generation, there are 999 projects whose current valuations don't quite justify their revenues, right? So to answer your question, Robbie, I would say you would need to look at each sort of tech altcoin, revenue producing altcoin in isolation on a case by case basis to determine which of the two routes you suggest that they should pursue. I agree that in the case of Uniswap, paying out revenue to token holders would be amazing, and it would be a step towards sort of the maturation of the space. But other altcoins, I'm not so sure, right? Because the reason I say this is because there are dozens of alts that are trading at multi-billion-dollar valuations while only making like 10K per day. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it depends on the protocol.
Right, and you should not own those, right? Because what's the point? If and yeah, 99% of them are garbage. But we knew that when we got in the game. It's just trying to find the one that goes 1000x until you take the zeros and everything else.
So,
Right.
Murad, your meme coin thesis has not been kind of swayed at all by the regulatory or the perceived regulatory clarity from a Trump victory, and that this kind of DeFi renaissance, in your opinion, is like a shorter term narrative, but probably won't be sustainable enough to outperform what you're viewing as kind of like this cult coin and movement coin thesis.
Yeah. So let's assume that the Trump administration provides regulatory clarity, makes it easier for revenues or profits to be distributed on chain, etc. Right? My issue is that nobody whose net worth is under $100 million comes to crypto to buy equity-like instruments, right? And especially in the current context where we are at this juncture, which is kind of year 3 going year 4 of a typical 4-year cycle. People come to crypto in hopes and dreams of catching one of those parabolas. One of those parabolas that usually happens every 4 or 5 years, right? And that's why people want to buy something with momentum, something that is fresh, something that's already been doing decently well up until now. And, if you look at past cycles, the best performers weren't the ones that are like paying people out money. And I don't think that we're already at a mature enough stage where this is going to be the case next year. Overall, generally, if you study kind of altcoin cycles in crypto, the themes and narratives and categories that do very well in quote unquote year 3, they're the ones that continue to do well in year 4. And I expect this to be the case again next year. So given the fact that 16 out of the top 20 best performers this year are memes, I expect this to continue to be the case next year.
Got it. Okay, so one last thing on this kind of like Trump win, and then we'll move to kind of some other topics. Arthur, I'm curious if your perception, being kind of based in Asia for the most part, and really just growing your presence there from all different lenses. Like I saw you on that Asian news show the other day, and you've really kind of established Maelstrom and your kind of crypto empire per se in Asia. I'm curious if the last 48 hours has shaped your perceptions of kind of where the epicenter of crypto activity is going to be for the next few years, and like where should founders position themselves geographically and culturally. Like, is America back? Is it the home of crypto again, or again is this kind of like a shorter term like narrative and emotion thing, but still kind of uncertain?
I think this is mostly emotion. I think this is hopium. I don't think a lot of people understand how politics is done in the United States, and Trump said a lot of nice things. He got, he won the election. People voted for him based on these nice things, but now it comes down to making rules, right? And it's not as straightforward as, oh, there's not going to be any capital gains tax on your crypto, right? That if that was the bill would be 5,000 pages long, because there'd be all these different lobbyists trying to put on all these different things to get their slice of the pie. And it's not going to be as straightforward. It's going to be complicated. Whatever rules they come out with are not going to be that clear, because at the end of the day, you have companies, I'm sorry to pick on them, like Coinbase and BlackRock, who are going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars and make sure that whatever comes out is going to be most beneficial to them, because they're going to regulatorily capture the legislators, just like the banks do and the insurance companies and every other industry in the United States. That's how things are done. So yeah, the overarching sentiment from Trump is we want to have regulatory clarity. And then when it comes down to making the rules, the staffers are going to have this monstrosity of a bill that's going to be incomprehensible to anyone who's not a lawyer or who has a law firm to spend $2,000 an hour to figure it out. So I think people are going to be a bit disillusioned of like what actually comes out of that. And then the remainder is, hey, all the clients are in Asia. It's 75% of the world's population lives in the Eurasian landmass, right? So it's just numbers. So if you want to grow, the next billion users of crypto, they're in Asia. And so that's where you need to be. That's the type of product you need to list. The number one trading market for crypto is in Korea. Seoul, like per capita, trades more than any other place in the world. So fuck English. You should be, having your shit in Korean. And I tell this to our projects all the time. Like, why do you come to me with some project? Like, I want any more users. Well, why is your shit only in English? Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Russian, like Vietnamese, Turkish. This is where the users are. How do you think CZ makes all this fucking money? It's not in America, right? So I think people just don't understand, just haven't looked at the sheer amount of people that are here, the amount of baking backwardness that is here, and the hunger for opportunity for something new for a much younger population in general in most of these countries, right? United States, I don't know, 38, 40 is probably the median age, versus in your mid 20s in a lot of these fast growing Asian economies. Do you want, boomers and, people my age, or do you want somebody younger who's more digitally native, is really willing to try something new? I think people are making a big mistake if they saying, oh, because Trump said nice things and he got reelected, all of a sudden I need to pivot my business to only focus on 4% of the world's population, even though they're very wealthy.
America, New York's trying to be the home of crypto, but as you said, I mean, I think that we have to see what comes from these regulations. And one thing that I think is particularly interesting is that people are really excited about crypto regulations in your clarity per se. One of the biggest use cases of crypto today, blatantly, is regulatory arbitrage, and the fact of the lack of regulatory clarity in the market today actually enables more innovation per se than kind of like a strict, okay, every user on every dApp on chain has to KYC, or every user has to go through this step process and these things. So I think that's also one thing where people are excited about regulatory clarity, but I'm not sure that we fully understand the implications of what that actually brings to the real users on chain.
But it's only regulatory clarity for 4% of the world's population, which, fine. The regulation would be whatever it is, good or bad or indifferent. It doesn't matter. 95% of the world has a different regime. Maybe it's similar, maybe it's not. I don't know. But if that's your goal as a founder, I was waiting for Trump's legislators to give me the rule book, and now I can go and build. I'm sorry, you're probably going to still fail, because you just can't do math.
So despite the relatively small population of the U.S. in terms of people, the capital base of the U.S. is quite large, and you're talking about kind of the liquidity infusion that could come from a Trump presidency. So how do you reconcile that?
Well, I reconcile that, regulatory clarity specific to crypto is like, what kind of crypto app can I use? How do I onboard a customer? What are the products I can offer them? Versus I am Trump and probably Scott Bassett, the new Treasury Secretary, saying, I'm going to probably print tens of trillions of dollars of bank credit to reshore businesses in America, ramp up inflation, ramp up the amount of dollars in the world, and those dollars will find themselves into crypto, into gold, into stocks, right? That's a global phenomenon. When liquidity is created in any fiat currency, it flows to the best source of preserving value, which has been Bitcoin since 2009. Whether it was China or from Japan or from Europe or from the US, we don't care. Fiat liquidity always makes its way into our backyard. And so even if, the regulations got even worse under Trump than they were under Biden, if Trump's going to print $10 trillion and hand it out to people, people are going to buy crypto globally. And so that's how I reconcile the difference between the two. I think it's more important what he does versus industrial policy and how he's going to hand out credit to businesses than the minutiae regulations that come out of the rulemaking process.
All right, let's get into some more of the degen stuff. There was definitely some good takes there that I think that crypto Twitter has been a little bit all over the place for the last 24, 48 hours. Engagement farming pretty hard as usual, but when we first wanted to do this podcast with Murad, Robbie and I had watched several of these episodes that you had done at Token 2049 and on a couple other podcasts. So, we're pretty familiar with the meme coin thesis. And I think that, all of our listeners can go watch the presentation pinned on your Twitter if they want to get the full rundown. I don't want to go through the whole thing again, but the thing that I am just burning as far as a question goes is basically the following. So these meme coins, these cult coins, these culture coins, movement coins, as you've described in this kind of hierarchy of people's needs from a personal and kind of just a community level, as well as the broader makeup of the crypto markets. You're describing these as having this very strong speculative premium, whereas as altcoins, they have a smaller speculative premium, and they're a bit more complex from like a valuation perspective. But the thing is, the crypto markets always move in these cyclical natures. And so the question is, are these investments in these meme coins on your list, are they entirely speculative? Do they hold lasting value amidst some of these broader crypto cycles? All of these things have always ended in a parabolic trend, as you said, into year 3 to year 4, which kind of has an end date. So I think myself and the broader community is curious, like, how do you think about exiting? Like specifically these ones on your list, SPX, Giga, Apu, Mog, USA, Ticker, Bitcoin, and others. I know Arthur loves smoking chicken fish. Like, how do you think about exiting this and the broader scope of this trend from kind of like where we are now into 2025 and 2026?
Yeah, so great question. My genuine belief and kind of baseline thesis as of right now is that 3 or 4 coins from the current crop, from the current cycle, will end up being multi-cycle, right? I think Doge is the best piece of evidence we have that multi-cycle memes are possible. I believe Flocky has made a new high, which also proves that multi-cycle meme coins are possible. SHIB might make a new cycle high next year. We'll see. But ultimately, it's definitely within the realms of possibility. My current view, like I said, top 3, 4 coins with the strongest communities by far, with the strongest mission, with the strongest concept, they are likely to make it beyond just one cycle. I would agree with you that the vast majority of these, 99.99999%, will probably be a single cycle phenomena, but I think the best of the best stand a chance of being multi-cycle.
And so that list that you have, those are your picks for multi-cycle coins. And it's because they're these movement tokens or these culture tokens. They bring a deeper community to the market. But then you got a guy like Arthur who comes around and sees this, throws in 100 million into memes, and then just dumps on everybody after a couple X, and then all the retail is kind of left like, what's going on? I thought this was a culture coin. The community is all excited when everything's going up, but what happens? Do you think that this is going to really be able to last in a deep bear market? Like these communities are that strong?
Yeah. So in a deep bear market, everything is going to go down, regardless of whether it's memes, altcoins, everything, right? Generally, I would say, I believe that quote unquote utility, it is bearish in bull markets and it is bullish in bear markets, if that makes sense, right? This is why you had a bunch of successful meme coins from last cycle try to add a lot of utility to their projects during the recent bear in 2022, right? You saw Flocky launch a launchpad, you saw SHIB build some kind of like tools, etc., right? Given the fact that I still believe we are in the middle of a bull cycle, um, the best is just to not have any kind of utility at all. But to answer your question, yes, I do believe that a handful of these will survive even a bear market. Now, you should be mentally prepared for them to do a negative 85% or more from the absolute peak of the parabola after 2025. But that's been the case for every crypto cycle thus far, and that's nothing new.
Got it. Yeah, and I think you mentioned that there'd be like 2 more parabolas is your prediction, right? So there's like one more impending one, probably, I don't know, in the next quarter or two, and then kind of one final hurrah. Is that still your core thesis?
Yeah, I think we're either going to have that or just kind of steady rise up over the next 12 months, one or the other.
Arthur, do you agree with those timelines as far as like the next stages of the bull? Or?
I don't like to wed myself to this cycle has to be this long, because every cycle is different. There's always different things that propel the cycle and different things that break the cycle. And so I don't have it must be 4 years or 4 year. We're in year 3, so we only have a year left. I am completely dependent on what is happening. And so if Trump, for example, prints $10 trillion between now and 2028, there ain't going to be no 4-year cycle. We'll be, ripping and roaring all throughout those 4 years. So, but if all of a sudden, if everyone in the world decides that we want to balance our books and, cut down on all this debt, then, crypto could crash 85% tomorrow, right? So it's completely situationally dependent. When I'm trading meme coins, and obviously I'm not as much of a long-term holder as Murad or some of these other, I guess, more seasoned traders, I kind of go by the rule of something makes an all-time high once, it's going to decline, and then it's going to try again for that high. And if it doesn't make it on good volume, I'm probably going to exit that coin. I'll come back later at another time when I feel like the mood is right or the macro is fitting up with trading. And that's kind of the thing. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you I've made 1,000x on a meme coin, right? This I get in late, I leave early. But I try to keep I try to preserve my capital more than have capital appreciation. But I'm coming from a different, starting notional value than most of other traders.
So Murad, I just want to further reinforce like the key point of the question is like, have you thought about your exit plan? Because I'm super curious to kind of understand like your arc as a main character here, because we've seen this time and time again. And I got a question for Arthur about kind of what kind of parallels he sees with you to some of the other characters of the past. But like, what's your exit plan?
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to agree with Arthur that making any kind of predictions, especially that have to do with like multi-month, multi-year time-related predictions, it is ultimately a fool's errand, and anything can happen. We could have a longer cycle than usual. We could have a much shorter cycle than usual, right? And ultimately, over the long term, I do agree that at some point the 4-year sort of cycle pattern will probably break or stop or evolve or change, right? But for the sake of simplicity, I am operating under the assumption that we still have somewhere between 8 to 14 months of bullishness left, if this cycle is anywhere even remotely similar to past one, right? Now, to answer your question, I am on record saying that I'll take profit on 60 to 70% of my positions sometime between Q4 of 2025 and Q1 of 2026. So I stand to do my best to kind of follow up to these words.
And Arthur, you kind of talked about how dependent this is on like kind of the macro liquidity landscape. Rather than thinking in terms of time when it comes to these cycles, what are some other things that we can point to that are consequential in kind of the peaks and the troughs in these cycles? Are there macro liquidity indicators? And you've spoken about them in your blogs quite a bit, but kind of what are the metrics that you're pointing to now to kind of keep track of where we are in this liquidity landscape?
Yeah, so I think the longer that crypto exists, the less that it becomes about the tech and the more that it becomes about it's a finite asset that is inflated in fiat terms, right? In the beginning, it was about, does this tech work? Does the blockchain work? Oh, there is something that happened And, this coin's down 95% because there was an issue, blocks didn't, produce or whatever, right? And so as certain coins have existed for a long enough time, it's not about the tech. The tech ossifies, it gets slow because people want to protect what they've built. It becomes about, okay, it's a finite supply of very low inflation versus fiat, which was what we're basing all of these values on. And so if we think about 2021, what really popped the market? Well, the Fed started communicating in, November of 2021 that it will be raising rates in March. And sure enough, the top of the market was November. And after the Fed raised rates for, 6 months, it only took 6 months. We had Terra Luna, Three Arrows, and then by the fall we had FTX, right? Very standard credit-driven implosion. People took a lot of leverage. When the price of money went up, they all got bankrupted, like textbook style. And so I think that we're more focused on the global supply of fiat money, and I basically track Japan, China, European Union, and America more so than anything else. And so, yeah, if all the major blocks are printing money in 18 months time, stuff's still going to go up. Just by mathematically, right? There's more fiat, and there's only so many meme coins, so many Bitcoin, so many ETH, so many Sol, right? It's just math, and so that's what I'm looking at. Global M2 is probably not the right measure, but there's all sorts of different liquidity measures depending on your philosophy, but they're all kind of say the same thing. It's the rate of change of the addition or subtraction of supply of fiat in the market. It's kind of what I look for, and if I see like, oh, I'm bullish on crypto, but then the market seems to be turning over in terms of the amount of credit that's going to be supplied, maybe I should reevaluate my convictions and pare down some positions.
To kind of double click on like this, and this might be more of a political question than an economic one, but I think if you were to ask some Democrats, like, why does inflation rise when Republicans and Trump gets into office, the very liberal answer would be because Trump's trying to enrich his personal friends, which I think is definitely short-sighted. But maybe you could kind of explain what a more reasonable argument is for why Republicans and Trump have kind of pointed to their what is their rationale for increasing the liquidity into the market and ultimately raising inflation, increasing the money supply in the world.
Very simple, right? So from 2008 into 2020, I'm going to write an essay about this. Should drop next week. I call it QE for rich people. So that means the Federal Reserve and the central bank printed money, it bought bonds, and it handed capital to rich people. And what did rich people do? They didn't need the money because their financial assets went up. They made a fiat profit. They bought a new house. They bought a new watch. They bought some squiggly lines on a canvas. But that generates absolutely no economic value. And the debt to GDP ratio of all advanced economies grew in the QE period of the last 15 years. And in the US, something happened in 2020, COVID, obviously. And Trump did what, probably the first president since FDR, and he handed out money to everybody. He said, okay, economy's fucked. I'm going to lock you in your homes because of the flu. And here is a bunch of money. And I'm not going to means test it. If you have a job, you get it. If you don't have a job, you get it. If you're rich, you get it. If you're poor, you get it. And so what happened? Everybody in the USA went out and they spent money, right? They spent so much money that all these companies, they're like, oh, where do our customers go? Oh, shit. They're ordering washing machines. They're ordering cars. They're going out to dinner. And I need to ramp up production. I need to go hire more people. I need to go to the bank and get a loan to build more stuff to satisfy this demand. So the quantitative easing paired with handouts to the people who would spend it generated more activity than the debt that was issued. And so the debt to GDP of the US government actually fell from 2020 to 2023. Now, obviously there was a backlash. Bondholders are what the fuck? Safeguard the value of the dollar, inflation, blah, blah, blah. Jay Powell came and started raising rates. He had to do a little bit of QE because Janet Yellen came in and just started printing money again. But at the end of the day, it wasn't handing out money to people like Trump and Biden did with the stimulus checks. They did the same old QE for rich people. Rich people assets went up, stock price went up, NASDAQ went up. And again, what happened? No economic growth. People got pissed off. And then they reelected Trump. And what has Trump said? I'm going to print money. I'm going to print money and hand it out to businesses so that they hire people. I'm going to tell the banks that you need to lend to American businesses to bring back business to America to hire Americans. So we're going to spend money in America. And I'm going to tax the fuck out of them. So the government's debt to GDP ratio declines and actually is in a healthier position. So the inflation is necessary because it drives a high nominal GDP growth, which the government taxes and reduces their leverage. And so that's why that's his program. That's what he's going to do. And you benefit if you're an ordinary worker who's, wants a better job. If you have money in a bank account or if you own a government bond, you get fucked because I'm going to emit so much of this stuff to reshore all this production. And the sucker is you owning these bonds. And so that's why gold and Bitcoin and certain stocks will do very, very well. And the average American who now has a job working in a factory, probably making $150,000, $200,000 a year, who didn't have a job before, is going to be very happy about the situation, even if inflation is at 10%.
You know, the parallels, even from my perspective, I'm 25, hearing and looking at the stock market charts and the real estate charts of assets in the States and worldwide before I was able to even really work or make any money, and kind of like thinking about this, like, damn, I really am way behind from basically boomers and millennials because like I'm fucked. Like I need to figure out a way to get ahead because what am I going to do? Am I going to buy the S&P that the chart looks like an absolute fucking banana? Or am I going to go buy do real estate mogul stuff? Or am I going to do stock trade? Crypto comes at a really interesting time in history where there's like this generation of young people who are in the system that you describe, Arthur, from the macro lens that are kind of like, well, how else do I catch up? And Murad, I think like on a micro level, this applies directly to kind of your thesis on the meme coins, right? Like it's like this is my way out, you know?
Yeah. I would love to add to what you just said. This is actually my overarching thesis for crypto as a whole, for Bitcoin, but specifically for the strongest meme coins this cycle, right? If you look at the current situation in the Western world, but honestly, arguably all around the world, it's like you said, right? Boomers have pretty much fucked Zoomers. Partially is their fault, partially is just kind of emergent properties of the system, right? In the 1960s, your grandpa could get a wife, could get 3 kids while having a minimum wage job, somehow ended up with a house. Goes without saying that today this is a pipe dream for most people, right? And whatever, I don't know, 5,000, 50,000 that a Zoomer may have or a young millennial may have, they know or they can intuitively sense that real estate returns over the next 30, 40 years are not going to be as good as his grandpa enjoyed, right? S&P 500 returns, unless they invent AGI 5 years from now, probably not going to be as good in purchasing power terms in the next 30, 40 years compared to what his grandpa enjoyed, and so on and so forth. So my actual thesis for meme coins is the following, right? Zoomers, they don't have as much money as the older generations. They don't have as much status. They don't have as much clout. They don't have as much political power. They don't have as much testosterone, frankly. They don't have as much of pretty much anything compared to the older people. But what is the one thing they're good at? The one thing that Zoomers are good at is social media, right? And I think the rise of meme coins today, a lot of people think it's like an anti-VC thing. And I increasingly think that's a small part of it. The bigger part of it is the fact that Zoomers are emergently inventing a new asset class that is hyper optimized to thrive in the attention economy. In the attention economy, because the social media is the only domain where young people dominate: culture, attention, and social media. So this is, I think, the biggest reason why meme coins are dominating right now. I think also precisely because of the massive amount of global printing of money that is happening nonstop over the past few decades, and that's particularly accelerating in the last few years. You're kind of having the following situation, right? So in the 1950s, 1960s, you had this kind of industrial age with the stocks, dividends, producing revenues, etc., right? Then you had kind of the NASDAQ, the tech world, VCs, Silicon Valley. Software became very powerful because it could grow so much faster than factories, right? You don't have physical objects, you don't have logistics. All you need is users and downloads, right? That can grow very, very quickly. And I think meme coins, they take that to another level, even more from tech altcoins, which are kind of an in-between zone. Meme coins take it to another level, which I kind of semi-jokingly call post-software era. Now we have kind of similar dynamics. We don't even have the software. We don't even have the metrics. People inside of crypto also are realizing that the token was the product, it wasn't the software, right? So now we're kind of stripping all the bullshit away. And now we are essentially building assets that are pure community, pure speculation, pure belief, and that are optimized for the social media age, because the meme coin communities, they are producing better memes than the memes that are produced by the tech altcoin communities, right? So these are the core dynamics that are happening right now.
Anything to add there, Arthur?
No, I mean, I 100% agree. Like, the reason why meme coins are fun to trade is because there's nothing to understand. Does the meme slap? Is it funny? Is it viral? Okay, I'll buy it because I know someone else will. Like, I don't have to understand cash flows, fucking tech. Just, all I need to know is how do I get on, Pump.fun and Radium and open a Phantom wallet. And so I think meme coins are the best thing that ever happened to Solana, even though I'm an ETH, not an ETH maxi, but almost there. So yeah, I think it's great. Like, let's just be honest with what we're fucking doing here, right? We're trading magic internet money, and hopefully we all get rich doing it.
It's time to get based. Reimagine on-chain trading with over 50 spot and perp markets, deep order book liquidity, and razor-thin fees to power your trading journey. Vertex Edge, now on Base, has done over $100 billion in trading volume, over 100 million in TVL, and thousands of unique traders. Join the future of trading with Vertex Edge, now on Base. Start trading now at vertexprotocol.com. Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fraxtal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fraxtal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire app chain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fraxtal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or mainnet into the Fraxtal mainnet. Bridge your tokens and bring your Frax assets into the Fraxtal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fraxtal. You are still early. Join today. Take part in our expedition into the singularity. Redstone modular oracles are available on 50 plus chains, trusted by over 100 clients and over 6 billion in total value secured. Visit redstone.finance to find out more. Can we get your ETH maximalist thesis?
So it's more based on, if you think about, number of developers, the biggest thing, right? ETH has the biggest developer community. Obviously Sol is probably number 2, but again, biggest developer community. I think some of the most of the most successful primitives in terms of DeFi or something that's happened in sort of the decentralized computing space, the products and the services, started on ETH and they're copied on other chains. And they might be more optimized on another chain, they might run faster, whatever. But the original idea came from some very smart teams developing an Ethereum first, and then it's propagated later. So that's why at a macro level, I like ETH over, say, Solana or some of these other coins. That's not to say that they're not good trading vehicles. I love trading Solana. It's very fun. It's fast. It's high beta Bitcoin is what I like to call it. But that's sort of where my ETH maximalism comes from. That's not to say that Solana can't have more developers and you start seeing projects doing new things first on Solana versus Ethereum. But I do think that right now, the lead that Ethereum has in that specific space is, miles better than any other chain, which is why, Solana is successful and ETH is what, I don't know, 400 billion and Solana's 80, 90, whatever it is, right? So it's still 4 to 5x bigger.
Yeah, and it is the birthplace of a lot of these ideas, and then end up coming to fruition, and then kind of expand outwards. And so, circling back to a previous point that was made, like, if you were to suggest to like the ETH powers that be, whether EF or otherwise, like, would you suggest this ultrasound money monetary premium path, or would you go down this, based ecosystem, DA, like blob chart, like more of the revenue producing discounted cash flow path?
I've been on record many times. ETH is not money. ETH is compute power. And so I think money is Bitcoin. Until proven otherwise, it will only be Bitcoin. Everything else is a specific use case, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that ETH is a commodity token with an endogenous yield. And theoretically, if ETH was worth $1 trillion, that would not be a good thing because then you wouldn't be able to afford the gas. So I think people lose sight of that. And I think ETH made the right decision back in 2016 during the DAO hack to not be money and be a computer. And that was a very clear decision by the community because there wasn't anything wrong with Ethereum. The DAO hack, it wasn't like there was if Bitcoin had an inflation bug, right? And they rolled it back to fix it, whatever. But that was intrinsic to what Bitcoin was. They had to fix it. This was an external third-party app that got really successful and fucked it up. And Ethereum compromised their immutability as a blockchain to save a third-party application. I think it's completely different. I think they said, okay, we want to be a computer. We need to give people their money back and let them continue building. And so I don't believe ETH is money. I don't think they should go after the moneyness. I think they should continue to be the cheapest way to execute on chain and let that build more useful applications on top of it.
I can also answer this as well. So I am of a different opinion to Arthur here. I think that the biggest mistake that the Ethereum leadership has done in the last 2 or 3 years is to go towards this sort of second path that you outlined, Robbie, which is focused on kind of like DCF, revenue, blobs, DA, etc., instead of being money. I think high market caps for Ethereum, the coin, and Solana, the coin, are only possible if they acquire some kind of monetary medium of exchange, unit of account, store of value properties. Otherwise, they shouldn't be worth much at all, right? So I think focusing purely on the technology would be really, really bad. Because every 4 or 5 years, there's going to be faster blockchains. There's going to be some kind of innovation. There's always going to be something shinier, something faster, and something that's going to completely disrupt you. It's a very dangerous game. My view is the only hope for Ethereum to go to 20,000, 30,000 in like long-term future is if the world starts to see it as kind of currency number 2. Like the silver to Bitcoin's gold. If that's not going to happen, then that is very, very bad for the ETH price. Now, personally, I am a hardcore Bitcoin maxi when it comes to like the store of value coins. But if either Ethereum or Solana are just purely going to be a computer, then they're going to get hyper commoditized to shreds. That their value, the core of their value, like if you actually study Ethereum's history and Solana's history, the reason why Ethereum reached a high price in the first place is because it was effectively the monopoly currency in its own grand casino. You needed to have some ETH in your wallet in order to participate in the ICOs of 2017. And that story kind of continued with DeFi, NFTs, and Ponzi-nomic stuff, yield farming in 2020, 2021, right? This is how Ethereum kind of got quasi-monetized. A very similar dynamic is happening on Solana right now, in order to hyper gamble on the fast-paced meme coins, on the new launches, on the pump funds, you need to have Sol in your wallet, right? So effectively, Sol not only becomes the medium of exchange unit account in that kind of meme coin economy, but like automatically a lot of phantom wallets get a lot of Sol, whether it's leftover or whether that's people using it as their choice of currency this cycle. Essentially, that's how Sol is getting monetized right now. But you can sense that it's essentially becoming like an ecosystem. It's like a borderless country with its own currency. If you purely treat Ethereum and Solana as tech, then in a perfect world, in a mature industry, their market cap should collapse by 80%, right? And equilibrate somewhere very, very low, because then they just become a commodity as bridges become better, as OTC desks become automated, etc., etc. People will just go, okay, Tether, gas, back to Tether, or BTC, gas, back to BTC. But the reason something goes up in all of crypto, regardless of the nature of the crypto asset, is you have diehard holders who are not only buying and holding, but they continue to DCA their paychecks into this. You have TradFi inflows, you have retail inflows, and that strong belief, that strong multi-year inflows that they are needed, but they're only possible if people believe this is like one of the big currencies of the future, right? So this is why now I personally prefer Bitcoin, but if I was like a strategy advisor to the Ethereum Foundation, I would tell them, you guys are insane. You guys need to you guys need to succeed with the ultrasound money plan. Otherwise, this thing is going to be completely worthless.
Arthur?
I mean, I would say that if that were the case, in the commodity markets in general would be, worthless. ETH is a commodity, a digital commodity in my view. Yes, it suffers from those things you say. It's used, right, which makes it harder to be money at the end of the day, because it actually has a use case, which in some respects is a good thing and a bad thing. I think it actually preserves its value if they need to be used more. And what you say is true, right? If they can't find a use case, I don't know if it's going to be the next meme coin iteration or whatever it is, they need successful applications that need to spend gas, right? That's why Ethereum has value. And then obviously there's an endogenous yield for people who stake it. That's your reason to hold it, right? I can mine the thing that's used to buy the compute power that I want to use, versus oil, which I can't really mine oil as a individual person, right? I can't store it. It's hard to store. Whereas here, I guess, go to some validator, and now I am, I'm a commodity producer and a user of it. So I think we'll see. I think it's going to be an open question. But I do understand where people are coming from. They say, oh, it needs to be money because, being commodity kind of sucks. But if you are the most used commodity and you have usefulness, then it's a very good position to be. But again, usefulness is hard, as we know. Like most of these things that we've built in crypto are not actually that useful.
Yeah, so here's the thing, in my opinion, right? Arthur, if we stretch your argument to its absolute logical extreme, just as a thought experiment, and we assume that all of the future on-chain agents, real-world agents, etc., they're going to be like super high IQ, super fast-paced, and perfectly game theoretically optimal kind of agents, then in that kind of theory / framework that you're suggesting, they would just buy the bare minimum ETH just 1 microsecond before the transaction that you need to do ETH for, and immediately after, out the other end, whether it's another similar recipient or whatever, they would just grab it, or whether it's a miner or whether that's another guy or whoever, they would just go back to like BTC or fiat, right? And that kind of collapses that monetary premium that they currently have. And my argument is, if you get rid of the monetary premium and you only leave that, like you say, the commodity, the usefulness, the fuel stuff, then that is going to be very, very, that's going to deflate the valuation,
Well, the valuation deflates because you're betting that there will be more people using it as commodity in the future than there are today, right? Then there's a massive price to earnings ratio on that. Like, I don't know what, it's like 200 or 300 times. It's massive, right? As you say, right? Because we expect that the usage of Ethereum and Solana and Aptos and all these things is going to go parabolic because of XYZ different reasons. And that's why you should hold this consumable commodity, is because in the future it's going to be more valuable because there's going to be more people spending it. That's why you hold these things. And so, yeah, again, if you're not able to generate usefulness, if there's not more people using the thing in the future, then of course you don't want to hold it that long. But if you believe that, there are these new emergent properties coming from this system and new applications coming in the future, therefore my time horizons, maybe now it was a minute, now it's 10 minutes, now it's an hour, now it's a day, or whatever it is, I'm willing to pay a premium because I believe that whatever's coming down the pipe, it's going to be more users using this thing. And therefore what I hold today is going to be worth more in the future. It's like why you would hold any commodity, right? You believe I bought an oil ETF today because I believe there's going to be more oil consumed in the future than today for a particular reason. But do I intrinsically want to have any oil? No.
Yeah, I mean, the comparison here is like Ethereum is the greatest meme coin versus like Ethereum is oil. Almost very, very simplified. And so kind of pulling us out of this one into this agent conversation, Murad, I think the community is very curious about your takes on these AI agent meme coins, specifically like some of these goat and fart coin things. They want to know, like, are you going to be participating in these? Are you going to be adding any of these AI coins to your list? And do you think that these have any staying power, or is it just complete trash?
Yeah, so it's similar to some of the other responses I've already given here so far. The slight problem. So first of all, when you're buying meme coins, you're not actually buying memes. You're buying the community. You're investing into the people. So ultimately, I believe the word meme coin is a misnomer. And what these really are, they are tokenized communities. They're essentially groups of people with their own token, right? So ultimately, the thing about GOAT and AI coins is it is undeniable that AI capabilities are going to be improving rapidly in the coming years, which means that if kind of like the value proposition or like the innovation or like the new shiny aspect of your meme coin is these kind of like AI tech related stuff, then every 6 weeks you're going to have something that's like better, fancier, faster, etc., right? And this is a very big part of why I am a big believer in BTC, and I'm a big believer in some of these cult meme coins. It's because neither one of these rely on technology so much. And the core value proposition are faith, belief, community, people, liquidity, and most of these things, they are not technology related. They are biological, human, and faith related, right? And my argument is actually the following. And this is kind of like one of my newer theories. I actually believe that the emergence of AI and the rapidly improving AI capabilities over the next 5 to 10 years, I think it's pretty much bearish for absolutely everything in crypto. Not bearish, but I think it's going to be a persistent bearish headwind for everything in crypto that is technological. Why? Because I think the cost and skill to produce a code base, especially if it's going to end up having to be open source, that is going to be collapsing very rapidly. We're already seeing that today, which means that even the legit altcoins of today that are producing revenue, I think that revenue is going to gradually collapse to zero. Why? Because the initial vision for the blockchain was to build a world with no middlemen. And my belief is that open source software should be absolutely free, 100%, or at cost, or essentially almost free. And I think what AI agents or AI powered software engineers, they're going to be effectively whipping up tons of, like, they're going to be aggressively forking, battle testing, hyper optimizing a lot of these protocols. Now, yes, maybe a handful of them, like Aave and Uniswap or whatever, are going to be able to maintain a moat based on kind of like Lindy effect, security, trust, whatever, and mostly like liquidity and stuff. But ultimately, I think as time drags by, anything tech related, anything code related is going to get commoditized to zero, which is now you have to ask yourself, in a world where AI is kind of like running everything and hyper optimizing everything super rapidly every hour, what are the things that actually still are valuable? And this is where kind of this idea of human faith, human people, human community comes in. And this is essentially why I like BTC more than ETH and Sol when it comes to money. And this is the same exact reason why I like cult meme coins more than any other technology related altcoin.
I feel like I understand your perspective, but I'm struggling to be anything other than a techno optimist in today's world, because the other side, as you said, that applies to a lot of other areas in life and in society. And as you keep going down like the butterfly effect of those outcomes, things can be somewhat bleak.
Yeah, but techno optimism is all about making things cheaper, right? And which means that if things become cheaper, that means less profit margins for kind of stakeholders, for token holders of cash flow coins, for the governance participants in like legitimate altcoins, etc. Right? I'm not even mentioning the altcoin scams. I'm even talking about the legit altcoins, right? So ultimately, I think the stronger you believe in techno optimism, the more you have to be bullish on things that don't rely on technology.
Arthur, what do you think is the right way to think about AI and the emergence of it on chain?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the specific altcoin stuff, like the meme coin, the reason why I like GOAT is it's the first one. And it might not even been created by Truth Terminal. I don't fucking care. People think it is, and that's all that matters. Every other one, just like Murad mentioned, is going to be judged on all these different metrics, because it's like, how much is it like GOAT? What did they change? Is it good or better? I just want to own GOAT, because what's the one that the Wall Street Journal is going to talk about, and Bloomberg, and these idiots are trading these AI meme coins. Look at this thing called GOAT. I want to own that, because they're talking about it. They're not going to talk about all the other 15,000 other ones that are coming up every other day now, because GOAT started the trend. Just like how many PFP collections are zeros, but everybody still knows what CryptoPunks is. Everyone still thinks it's ugly or whatever, but Sotheby's is selling CryptoPunks and not the other ones, right? So you want to own the number one, maybe the number two, because the number two did something better and it still, gets that hype. But yeah, that's where I am on sort of the meme coins. And I think AI in general, if costs are reduced to zero and everything is about how many people you have in your network, and then like how engaged are they? Again, of course it's only going to benefit a few projects, but that's the goal of this whole, journey of investing. Is we know that 99.99% of all this stuff, for not just AI, for all sorts of different reasons, will never succeed. Are we able to use, our predictive abilities and luck to pick the Uniswaps and the Aves, the Athenas of the world, of the cycles, and everything else? I agree. Will trend to zero as tech is free and all you have is your network and your community.
I must say, Murad, your meme coin thesis, in addition to this AI from Arthur, I mean, previously, just like a few months ago, I mean, it really turned me around on the high FTV, low float, VC, token is the product stuff. Now bringing into this AI are likely going to be in a similar boat as Robbie and I from the angel side, where for the last couple of years, these token launches, you've been able to get in and invest at 30 mil, 50 mil, less than 100 mil, and these things have been launching in the billions, right? And VCs are able to exit OTC, dump their SAFs over time. Even if the token goes down 90% from entry, the VCs are still up kind of like 10x. And I'm not here to paint the VCs in the bad light. What I'm more so looking to do is understand from both your perspectives how you guys see the capital formation process in crypto changing over the coming years. There's a lot of hype around public sale platforms like Legion and Echo. Murad, I know that you're pretty excited about Legion. Just like generally thoughts on where the capital formation process in crypto changes, the shift away from these kind of low float, high FTV launches, and kind of what this is going to look like for new tokens in 2025.
Arthur, you want to take that first?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're already starting to see a shift, right? There's a blame game between, I didn't charge a listing fee. No, you charge a listing fee, like with Hui versus Brian Armstrong. So we already know the game is up. When these guys are starting to blame each other, like you technically said this, and I know you charged a listing fee over there. The game's up, right? We're going back to 2017 and to the ICO days, which I thought was the purest and we should go back there anyways, right? You put a website up, you created a community, you launched a token, you either did it or you didn't. And a lot of people got smoked, but whatever, right? At least you're able to get in, and it was fun. I think that founders are seeing the results, right? Not only, I published an essay about this. You were underperforming the market by 50 to 60% because you were, had to have the $1 billion number, and then your metrics were dog shit, and the retail saw it and they dumped it immediately, and then it just went to flatline to nothing, right? And so I think project founders are starting to get it. They still think that they need to have the Binance listing or that this tier 1 exchange. Like, what do I need to do, Arthur, to get on these exchanges? Can you help us out? I'm like, fuck the exchange, fuck your token. Tell me when you have 1 million DAU, and I'll tell you how to get every single fucking exchange. Like, who cares about your token price, and who cares about what exchange you're on? Like, tell me where your users are. I think that's starting to hit slowly as people are seeing these projects just die when they launch, because there's, they're not, the reason why we're all in crypto is to get rich. And so if I'm using your product and I'm not getting rich, but this motherfucker over in California is, well, fuck you. I'm not going to talk about your thing anymore on crypto Twitter. I'm not going to support you in your community. Why did I get the tokens, back at $10 or $15 million valuation? Even if you gave me just a little bit, it doesn't really fucking matter, right? That's how Ripple and Cardano and some of these dog shit projects have the most dedicated communities, because they're rich, because they got in early, because the project gave them stuff and incentivized them. And so I think people are starting to learn that again. It's a cycle. It'll take a bit of time, but I think we've jumped the shark when the CEOs of the largest exchanges are trying to out each other on Twitter, saying you didn't charge listing fees. Game's over. It's just a question of how long it takes.
Yeah. So I'm in total agreement here. I would say it's very simple. I would love the world to return to the 2017 ICO model. I think it perfectly aligns with the libertarian and the kind of crypto anarchist ethos of crypto. Obviously, in 2017, you could buy Link and Binance token, I believe, for 25 million or something along those lines. And you could buy Ethereum in 2015 at 33 million, I think. And right now, on the other hand, you have some absolute dog shit with 0 users and 0 revenue launching on day one on Binance at 25 billion, right? So obviously, here's my thesis, right? I've said this 1,000 times already. All of these things have been meme coins all along, period. And I think young people, smart retail, they're finally understanding this. What VC, founder, centralized exchange, market maker, supply chain, altcoin grift complex has been engaging in for the past 8 years, I refer to as the global IQ arbitrage. Unfortunately, a lot of retail around the world, they mistakenly kind of think of tokens as equity, which they obviously are not. Most of these tokens is just some separate, loosely aligned thing that may or may not be one day somehow connected to the software, right? And, it's all been just performance art all along. These games these kind of day one valuation games that a lot of tech founders are playing, I think it is borderline evil. I think it's immoral. I think it's unethical. And Arthur is 100% correct. The reason why XRP, Cardano, and Link are referred to as cults today, and why they have diehard communities, is because they made poor people rich. That's how you build a cult. You build a very strong community by making poor people middle class, by making middle class people rich, and so on. And when that happens, on kind of a long, sustainable, emotional journey, these people, they're going to quit their jobs. They're going to make that coin their whole personality. And we've seen that with even the best tech cults in the past, right? Even Tao, which I would argue is the one good example this cycle. They started kind of letting people mine their coins in 2022. It was at a fraction of a cent or something. And right now it's trading at $14 billion. So that's how you build a diehard community. And this is the exact reason why meme coins are completely taking over everything right now. Meme coins are essentially a ICOs 2.0. They are recreating that thing where it's much more organic price discovery since day one. Price discovery literally starts at $1. It's completely bottom up. It's much more sort of aligned with that crypto anarchist 2017 ICO kind of vibe. And the young people are realizing that all these tokens, every single one of them, they're just tables at the casino. So why should we be bidding a $25 billion coin on day one on Binance, where the VCs are already up 500x, where we can just create stuff of our own? And like I said earlier, stuff that's funnier, more inspiring, with a lower kind of with a less steep learning curve. You don't need to learn about any liquid restaking bullshit or anything like that. And we can essentially be the overlords in a small pond rather than being kind of servants in an ocean, right? And so this is why meme coins are taking over right now, pure and simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I've grown to find this balance specifically over the last couple of months as being like I'm very excited about the technological developments in crypto, like new innovations on scaling, on execution environments, on different types of DeFi primitives, on breaking barriers for decentralization, on all these things are extremely exciting. The tech token product is unfortunately plagued by this kind of system that you talk about, where I'm still very excited about the technology, but that the tech token product suffers from this kind of fate. And I think for the better, the crypto's capital formation process is changing. There will be more opportunities for people, on platforms like Legion or Echo. There'll be better opportunities to buy on the liquid markets. And I think that the sentiment might shift back into the direction of these tech tokens if they can kind of follow the more ICO meme coin playbooks with their early communities. So guys, I wanted to say thank you for being here. I just have one last question for you, Arthur. You've been in the trenches for years. BitMEX 2016. Murad's kind of came on the scene hot. I mean, you hear his takes today. They piss people off. He's got his on-chain wallet doxed. People are, he's blowing up. He's going main character arc. And I don't know if you remember in 2020, there was a guy who made a Google spreadsheet of every single Dogecoin derivative. He had like 100 dog coins on Ethereum, and he ended up getting entries on all of them, like sub 1 million, sub 5 million market cap, and just absolutely printed and blew up off of these memes. So that's just being one example. But the question for you is, what parallels with other main characters in the past or other people in crypto do you see in Murad's recent ascent? And is there anything from the old days that feels relatable to this that we could study to glean insight on how this will all kind of play out in the end?
I mean, everyone has their time in the sun. It's fun, have a good time, and take profit at the end of the day, right? You don't want to be the old dude trying to end the club and, just trying to get things done, right? It's just, trying to work too hard. So enjoy it.
Thank you, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Right.
Absolutely. Thank you.